Well, Henry, it's always great to be with you. Recently, I just finished reading one of your books, your latest book called Necessary Endings. I just want you to know it blessed me tremendously. Matter of fact, each of your books always gets inside of my head and makes me be a better Christian and a better servant leader. Thank you for taking time today to be a part of this interview. Let me just ask you, Henry, you and I have talked about this for some time, about being on the board of directors of World Leaders Group, Inc., and I'm so delighted that you're willing to serve, but why did you decide to be a part of this group?
Well, a couple of reasons. First, just the vision of what they were doing, what they cared about, what they wanted to accomplish in the world was really captivating to me. But, you know, a lot of things can sound good, but then you got to look at who's involved with it. And when I looked at the group of people that had put it together, and I knew so many of them, and I knew their work, and I knew what they tend to produce and the fruitfulness. You know, one of my favorite passages in the Bible says, you know, a good tree can't produce bad fruit. And when I looked at that group of people, this thing was really going to produce good fruit. So I said yes.
Well, Henry, thank you for sharing that scripture. It's one of my favorite scriptures. Of people's lives, you will know their character, their integrity, based upon the fruit that they produce. I can't agree with you more about that. But let me ask you, Henry, when you think about the presenters that not only on the board of World Leaders Group, but the presenters at this year's World Leaders Conference, what are some of the things you've learned over the years from some of these wonderful presenters?
Well, there's no way I could list all the stuff I've learned from the people at the World Leaders Conference. There are just some, you know, really amazing people. But a few stand out to me. You know, I've worked a lot with Bill Hybels, and Bill, when I think of Bill, one of the things that comes together that I have learned from him is when you have a really big vision, but you go the next step, which is what Bill does as well as anybody. He will surround himself with gifted people, and then he will champion them, and he will get behind them. And every time I'm there, I see the leadership principle lived out, that he really, really invests in champion in the gifts of other people, and that's how great things happen. You know, another one is Pat Lencioni, and there's so many things that he talks about that are key, but one of them that I see over and over and over that is so important is he talks so much about leaders having clarity. And if you look at organizations and groups and individuals that actually accomplish big things, it is very clear to everyone in the room, to the customers, to the organization, to the board, to the employees, to the CEO. Everybody knows what it is that they're about, and that leads to what it is they're supposed to do. And to me, that's one of the most underutilized principles in organizations where people have problems. So, I mean, I could go on and on, but those are two of the great ones.
Well, Henry, you mentioned two of my favorite leadership examples, Bill Hybels and Patrick Lencioni. What exemplary leadership they provide every single day of their lives to challenge us to live better Christian lives. But when I think about the World Leaders Conference coming April 18th and 19th, Henry, what do you think is the difference between the World Leaders Conference and other events that are happening in the United States? What do you think are some significant benefits?
Well, you know, I think there's a lot of good leadership events out there, but one of the things about this particular conference is that there's a collection of people, both the speakers, but as well as the speakers, the attendees, who bring something to the chemistry of it. And when they get together, and it's the talks afterwards, and it's the lunches, and it's the in-between, and it's the taking what you just heard, and there's something about the chemistry that I think is really powerful and unique, and I look forward to being there.
Well, Henry, chemistry is so important. You know, you can have character on your team, people that are full of integrity, and they're honest people, and you can have competent people. But if the chemistry's not there, it's not going to work. for the long term, and it's not going to be fun as well. So at this year's World Leaders Conference, it's about chemistry, it's about networking, it's about building relationship with people that can help you for the journey. Now, when you think about conferences, Henry, there are World Leaders Conferences out there, but what's the difference between just a conference and a servant leadership conference that gives emphasis to serving something bigger than you?
Well, a lot of times in leadership conferences, what happens is you learn the discipline of leadership, okay? And if we went through all things leadership and you would learn vision casting and how to be a change agent, build critical mass and all this stuff that, you know what, if you're a leader, you really have to know all of that. Now, here's the deal. MBA programs are turning out, thousands of those people every day, and we have to know that. That's really good stuff. But here's the difference. When leaders get out into the real world and they start to, try to make all of this work, there is a principle in the universe. And the principle is this, that if you are going to do something truly great, you must understand that whatever that great thing is transcends you. And the great leaders are able to take who they are and they are able to give of themselves to things that transcend them, transcendent purposes, the mission, serving the stakeholders, serving the customers, serving the employees, serving God, serving the values. And when they are serving something bigger than them, then, there's a phrase I like to use, if you want to get big, you got to get small. And when we find our piece in the big thing and serve that, the big thing gets bigger and we get to go along for the ride. But if you look at the opposite of servant leadership, what happens is whenever you have leaders, a CEO or anybody else, and they think that the entity exists to serve them and their purposes, you see CEOs that think the whole thing is about, their stock portfolio and all the. It always implodes and it always caves in. And look at the big corporate failures, look at the industry failures. It's always because the people wanted to make the big things serve them, and we got to get that right.
Wow. Henry, that was absolutely amazing. That if you haven't put that in a book, you need to put that in your next book about servant leaders and about making it about something bigger than themselves and about not being concerned about their stock portfolio, but make it about the customer, make it about the parishioner in their church, make it about others, and then they'll be blessed by it. Now, Henry, when you think about the World Leaders Conference, what are things that you get personally out of an event like this?
Well, to me, that's one of the fun things about doing what I do is, I'm supposed to be at work, right? And, but when I go there, the cool thing is I have literally blocked out much more time than the time I needed to be there because I want to listen and I want to learn and I want to interact with the people. And I always go away, like I think everybody will who goes there, you never know what God is going to say to you for that dilemma. You're unclear. Should I take this next step? What do I do? Should I hire this person? Should I? And God uses the mix to speak to each person where they are in that particular moment. That's one of the ways He guides us. And I always get something out of it, and I always go away doing something different because of what I learned there.
Henry, I know your schedule is very, very busy, and for you to take 2 or 3 days and to not only be a presenter, but to move from being a teacher to a learner with a notebook and a pen in your hand, jotting down leadership nuggets to make the right decision. I've seen you do it over and over, and I know your schedule is busy, so thank you for teaching us how to do that as well. But let me ask you, Henry, when you think about the attendees that are going to be this year at the World Leaders Conference, what do you think is going to be the impact that we'll have on this year's attendees?
I would like to describe it from the laws of physics. There's the second law of thermodynamics says this, that basically as time goes on, we get worse. We get old, our hair falls out. If you wanted to see the greatest example of this is Home Alone. If you leave the kids at home and there's nothing happening there, over time, there's going to be a mess. But here's the deal. That's only true in a closed system, okay? Entropy gets worse, disorder gets worse over time in a closed system. But you can reverse that process if you open up the system and you bring in two ingredients. Number one is a new source of energy. Number two is a template or some way to organize that energy around principles and a path. Now, when you go to a conference, the World Leaders Conference like this, what happens is you've been, thinking your own thoughts and doing it the best you can. You're going to go there, you're going to open up the system, and you are going to get energy from these people and from these speakers and from these ideas that is going to turbocharge your thought processes, everything you're doing. But not only, it's not just a hype session, you're also going to get a template or new pathways to begin to order your activities and your behavior. So you put those two together, and that always is a transformational moment for us where we go out differently than we came in, or different than we came in, and then we begin to do things differently, leading to different results. And it's just the way things work.
Well, Henry, that is a powerful insight into the law of thermodynamics about people's lives are better by having a new energy source that comes into their life. I can't wait to hear what you're going to say at this year's World Leaders Conference. Henry, on behalf of the Board of Directors of World Leaders Group, Inc., we are so delighted not only to have you serve with us and be on this team, but thank you for your insights today. May God bless you.